Hello, folks. Welcome to another live poetry reading. Tonight's poets are Zoe Berg, Catherine Whitcomb, Gary Trotman, and Gralandra Larkins. I will start off with a couple of poems before our first poet reads. This one is called Eternal Internal Conflict. I take one step and then another, planning to walk at least a mile. But my brain suggests I take one step less, head back to bed where I could rest. My heart is conflicted, as if in love. It feels my tired eyes, but knows what's on the line. And the second poem is simply called Poem. My day is not my own. It was stolen, and my dreams turned to stone. Some Medusa haunted me when I thought I could see. It was true what E.D. said about hope, for it flew away and left me to cope. There is a dilemma in the wind when it blows harsh and the dangling of the leaves begins. Death will come, no need to run toward or away. It is not the Savior for which you pray. My day is not my own, but on and on I go, no matter what turns to stone. Our first poet tonight is Zoe Berg. Zoe is a queer poet, visual artist, and editor whose poems have been featured in art installations on windows, in journals, and anthologies, such as About Place, Runes, Sin Frontiers, and the Royal Bread Show. Also in collaborations with artists in all media, including Bluetooth dancers, ceramicists, melodica, and upright bass players, quilt makers, and photographers. She lives in Dakota Land in Minnesota, Matosi. I think I butchered that. Take it away, Zoe.
Thank you, Ron. Hi, all. It's good to see you. Hello, fellow poets. Hey, thank you everybody who's tuning in. It's really fun to be here. This is kind of wild being on TV as a poet. I feel like this is as close as I will get to being on the Muppet Show. So I am fully delighted. Um, Also, it being the equinox, uh, a solar eclipse, a new moon, it just feels like a very, very juicy day for poetry. So, that perfect balance between light and dark today is the equinox, apparently. So I feel like on this kind of day, anything could happen. Um, and I have some light and some dark and everything in between in these poems I'm going to read you. The first is called I Never Told You, and it's a new one, unpolished. I'm going to work toward by ending reading a poem by a poet I really admire, a tremendous poem. So starting out unpolished, ending with something I think is pretty perfect. I never told you. I never told you I was not el valiente, though I went alone to the cave, not knowing whose teeth would surprise me there. I never told you that when I removed her hat, there was no there, or that Gertrude Stein once tap danced for money at the Pink Adobe. I never told you that mourning doves all go silent until train sounds fade from their tiny ears. Jane says, I'm done with Sergio, but we already understood how hard it is to leave a pimp. I never told you I was once given the antithesis of a diamond, a lemon tree, or that I spotted you in the night sky, Scorpio, and closed the blinds. I would like to tell you the word I learned at the Tenement Museum for the way people had to sleep so close, feet to head. Tsifisin, a word born on Orchard Street. That word, thank you. That word, I love that word. Tsifisin, a word invented in the 1930s. Tsfeesin. This next one is a poem I probably worked on for 27 years. I am inspired by Marianne Moore, who kept editing her poems until she died. This is called You Said My Ovaries Are Growing Teeth and Hair. 5-minute painting of your insides. Trees, sunset, little teeth. You are busy making something. You just don't know what. A cake without flour or butter, only nuts and baking soda. No need for a whole new person, just parts. Unconscious precaution, 7 layers deeper than siloed grain. Can cause malignant transformation, the doctors say. I only half believe this is a sickness. It might be a kind of immortality, deep bell in the body summoning what? In dreams, you find one end and pull, and the hair won't stop coming. A rope that slowly gathers consciousness, then stands and opens its eyes. If it grows, if it survives, a dragon will be no match for its strength. Army of the Magdalenes. Imagine it. Or maybe you don't have to. So many missing and murdered women and girls, their free and breathing bodies would populate a city the size of Kyoto, Guadalajara, San Antonio. Female bones cover this church-ridden earth, countless anonymous stars on a map of known constellations. And you, if you're reading this, maybe you were told to take a number, wait for a name, while some guy painted over 19 versions of a nude before it got to you, and still it was not your body. Rain truth on each fist, rain a pure dram of self on every crown from the abalone's ascendant eyes. This next one is from a short series called Hag Letters that I've been working on. I'm really into hags and crones these days for all kinds of good reasons. And I started writing questions to this goddess figure this ancient goddess who formed mountains by dropping stones out of her apron. Started writing questions to her and then writing down the answers that came to me. So these are some of her answers. Hag Letters 3. A hag is a hand that needs no pockets. Hags eat priests like gingerbread. Hags know worm language, tongue of datura, how to turn invisible in a crowd at will, how to pull the nightmares from your sacrum. Hags weave threads that shimmer with atoms, thrum dark matter. Hag storms will find every crack in the rich man's bunker. Hags built a force field around the last abortion clinic in Mississippi. On this day when it feels like maybe anything can happen and it's more important than ever for us to speak up and speak out and not be afraid to do it, I may as well read this poem called Spell for the Dissolution of Demagoguery. Begin on a night in July when the first fireflies appear, winking like prairie ghosts, haunting immaculate lawns. Do the opposite of pinning them to your ball gown and forcing their slow expiration while you dance. Enlist them in your rebellion. Say, fire this time, 3 times. Watch a light expand, a burn hole spreading like an ember on a polyester nightgown, till its edges lick the characteristic coiffure of the dustbot, setting his hair alight and leaving a smoking gap in space, the ring of fire. Through it send 3 juvenile hawks and their twilight call. Send wind, the labored breaths of the hunted and the caged. Send rosemary, dragon of remembrance. Ask the frogs for a good rain, then sew this door shut with a bone needle and thread plucked from your own head. Keep on sewing till you hear the hawks again. They've flown all the way back from the bottom of the world. Thanks for listening, all. I have one short poem for me, and then one last poem to close. This is titled Mini Oe Sni, which is a place, a beautiful sacred place near the Mississippi River in Minneapolis, also known as Coldwater Spring, for any locals. So this is Mini Oe Sni. There is no border, only exchange, and birds are citizens of the world. A river goes where it goes, and so do we. Mycelia of thought, great blue heron and golden eagle, close enough to brush wings. And this last poem was written in 2011, but became famous after its author was killed in an Israeli airstrike in 2023. This is If I Must Die by Rafat Al-Arier. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Zoe. The poems were wonderful.
Thank
Next up, we have Catherine Whitcomb, who is the author of 3 full-length collections of poetry, including Habitats, published in January 2024 from Poetry Northwest Editions, in the Possession Sound series, Saints of South Dakota and Other Poems, which won the Blue Stem Award chosen by Lucia Perillo, and The Daughters Alamat, which won the Backwaters Prize chosen by Patricia Smith. Her poetry and prose are published widely in journals, including the Paris Review, the Yale Review, Kenyon Review, among others. She was a Stegner Fellow at Stanford University and is the recipient of fellowships from the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown and elsewhere. She lives in northern Vermont. Take it away, Kathleen.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much. Thank you to Valerie and the other poets. I'm really happy to be here. Um, and I had forgotten what an auspicious day it is today, Zoe. And no wonder I felt weird all day. It kind of explains it. I'm going to read 2 poems from my most recent book, Habitats, first, and then I'll read some new poems. And I wanted to start a timer, so I know what I'm doing. Okay. All right. The first poem is called Murder Mystery. So the car sits side saddle on the trail while she walks the dog, and she didn't tell anybody where she was going. No, no dog. Only her iPod, but no purse or backpack, not even a power bar in the pocket of her running pants. Or maybe the holidays came and instead of flying east as usual, she didn't, and we just assumed. The creek bubbles thickly over the rocks down the slope, barely liquid. Footprints ink the snow, but they're blown out. No car, no dog, and the porch lights blaze all night and all day in an unnotable way. No more piles of envelopes carried to the post office, no sloppy shoveling jobs, no more shades up then down, no gray garbage bin on the curb Sunday nights. She kept a quiet house in the first place. Messages to the larger world do not return the favor. She should have known. And fate has a tall swing like the one out back, where once her feet hit the blue curtain of the sky. My book Habitats is divided into three parts. The three habitats, which are forest, hotels, and dreams. And I'm going to read a hotel poem, which is not an actual hotel, but a container, if you follow me. So, Hotel Vienna. Now that no one loves me, tiny angels relinquish their architecture to circle my cheekbones, their shields outstretched. Some surge through narrow alleys, prickling the air. Some whisper comfort into carriage horses' ears. Now that no one loves me, angels sleep on worn velvet sofas in Cafe Helvelka while coffee passes hand to hand above their heads. Three bald angels arrange insects on a woman's shoulder, stretching out each black, spiny leg. Some extinguish the exit signs inside vast, glowing museums. Some smoke outside on the grand verandas. Now that no one loves me, angels unhook each precious painting to set the trees inside them free. Some bestow straw and flower garlands upon wool-suited matrons for me. Without love here, Nietzsche wrote, the world is deep. Um, thank you. I was really happy to have two poems in the Moon issue of Ecotone magazine. It's a really beautiful issue. Um, and it's the current one that's still out now. And I worked on a manuscript for like the last 2 years, which is a lot about the circle of the seasons and the plants and kind of ecological despair. And I wrote some rondelles, which are this weird little form, French form with repeating phrases in it about colors. And the first poem is also about a Bruegel painting, Peter Bruegel the Elder. So this is called Fall Bruegel Yellow. All the leaves went yellow the year it flooded, scraps spinning away from my leaf blower, The maples shock sulfur and ochre, no reds that year, all yellows. Myriad yellows, each echoing the saffron and sallow gold of riverbank sand, and cows' hides embroils the return of the herd. Not mellow fruitfulness in that yellow under an autumn-leaded darkening horizon. Weary herders follow their cows, hats pulled low, heavy-headed, past shorn fields of yellow. And then another one, fall viburnum. Before the leaves lose their green, the season sighs a beat in September, a pause, and once ferocious weeds die back. Ripe tomatoes torch in dry foliage, drop seeds. Before leaves lose their green, nasturtiums cascade over fences, spill open-mouthed deep, lipstick flowers hectic with ending. Now a lake greets every sunset, reflects back aurora red, laid straight as a street in flames, and bursts of low rays blink molten through trees. Gaillardia flare back to blooming, Sundance fire wheels of hummingbird nectar red, and viburnum berries bleed before leaves lose their green. Thanks. Okay, I will read a couple more here. These are also from the new book that's called The Earth Clock, In Search of a Publisher. So this is called The Many Worlds Theory Explained. Where do the dream drafts of poems go? I remember with such surety in the mornings, yet so many poems get lost while sidewalk shoveling, wordling, or grading with a rubric. I could cry. My dream poem voice is weirder than this, and sometimes my dream poems cheap away like Woodstock from Peanuts, tiny hash marks in bubbles of dialogue. Some of my poems like to lie on the shoulder of a sand-strewn road. One dream poem was driving a coupe to Provincetown when the tank read E and it had to hitch in from Nauset wearing Comme des Garçons slip-on shoes. I wake up hoping to keep this dream poem safe and snug in my hippocampus. A dream poem that wouldn't need snacks. A dream poem that smiles like it just emerged from a long, hot yoga class and doesn't have plans for later, but turns out it's dying for a large bourbon with lots of cubes, and then gets completely distracted watching a badass red-headed woodpecker work the neighborhood trees hunting bugs. Okay, this is my last one. This also mentions Bruegel's painting Return of the Herd, which completely, changed my life. So I think I've written 3 poems about this painting. Translation. In Bruegel's Return of the Herd, large rhythms gather up everything touched with the brush. Herders head downhill, passing by us on a path into some trees, then to a valley, right to left. Workers absorbed by the grape harvest thread around levels of vista, seen as we adjust our vision to the painting's darkness. Leaves have fallen in the forest, stick season, where they hang on brownish, barely. The end of October. As the woods are translated by the seasons, wrote Jack Gilbert, great love of my life. Poetry translates into our bodies, into blood and synapse and hunger, hangs there. The speaker in his poem, The White Heart of God, searches for a sign that God exists. Bruegel's landscape, despite the rainbow and Italian mountains, gives us none of that. On the far hillsides, we see execution sites with torture wheels and erected gallows. People strain to set traps for birds and game. A landscape can be read in any language. Gilbert's speaker remains hopeful for signals, yet the earth winds her clock and the autumn preparations go on for things expected and for the unknown, for harsh winter or for war. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I like that line, the landscape is can be read in any language. Next up, we have Ohio-born and raised Carrie Trotman, who is the founder of Toledo Press, ToledoPoet.com, and the Toledo Poetry Museum page on Facebook, both of which were created to help promote Northwest Ohio poetry. She has served as an annual judge for the Northwest region of Ohio's Poetry Out Loud competition since 2016. Her poetry and short fiction have appeared in numerous anthologies and journals, and her one-act play, Mass, received a stage reading as a winner of the Toledo Repertoire Theater's Toledo Voices competition. Her books are Things That Come in Boxes, To Have Hoped, Artifacts, To Be Nonchalantly Alive, Marion's Self-Portrait, Oil on Canvas, On Noble Things, and Irregulars. Take it away, Carrie.
Thank you so much for having me. So I've got a couple common themes, images running through these poems tonight. One being apples and one being water. Just sort of worked out that way. This first one is: a drowning person doesn't always look like drowning. The polio survivor in the iron lung knows how few technicians there are to repair such machines. How can a man sleep with airflow vulnerable to snapped bolts and power grids? Everything can rupture under the right burden, even femurs or railroad bridges. Weaknesses splintered into like all the awful things we save up to say to people we love in just the right fight moment. These lungs I choke with are the same sacs that once filled themselves with my mother's fluid. Clavicles and ribs that crack can't be fiberglassed into casts. Rather, the body around them must agree to rest the muscles bent on tugging those bones around. Let this be apology to the bones of my 10-year-old self for having grown old, having stretched them thin like pulled taffy, having loaded them with weight of sorrow and cake. Someone invented the motorized rotating bed my father's comatose body was strapped into like a pickup truck bed of lumber, tilting his mass left or right every other hour to keep fluids from tide pooling his lungs. How can a woman sleep knowing all the songs she has stopped her lungs from singing? Imagine your rib cage made of brass, and how many birds could rest safely inside, and how their songs could echo out of your mouth opened like the lid of a music box. My father awoke from his coma to TV helicopter footage of New Orleans submerged by Hurricane Katrina. What country is this? Apology to the lungs I douse with house paint fumes, pork smoke, and daiquiri-scented candles. Everything hidden inside that we rely upon to shape and inflate us will someday fail, overwhelmed by what's been asked of it, by its DNA, by a self-important brain. Imagine an endless supply of tools, so many ways to not need them, ways to not need anyone. On instructing my children on proper placement of blame. There will always be apples, golden or not, or delicious or red, varying degrees of teeth pressure needed to pierce peels. Never having met a serpent with venom beyond the hiss, how could she have known motive in flick of tongue so different from Adam's? Did God not make for her the serpent too, and its voice? There will always be tongues, truthful or not, or dancing or not, and poised to point blame away from themselves and let you bleed behind the leaves you named together. Never having been injured by an apple, how could you know that some knowledge can poison? I can't bleed your blood for you. I can't even heal. There will always be trees with ever-branching branches. If I don't plant one of every tree for you, how can I expect you to know which will hold your weight of legs? Never having climbed or watched me fall, how could you know how to splint your cracked arm with a branch from what broke you? There will always be brokenness, intended or not, or tempted or leapt into. I can't chew bitter peel for you, and I don't get to swallow the juice. Never having witnessed your downfall, how could I know whether I'll blame you or myself, whether I'll admit the apple was irresistible only because I told you to do so? This one's called Dowsing. My mother's breastbone is a dowsing rod, and she taught me, no matter where I am, to always seek the nearest source of water. My father didn't drink when we lived in a shitty small town. Not till we lived in the city, a while in a house without surrounding fields, without a 20 by 40-foot garden of wax beans, kohlrabi, snap peas, and crooknecks. When snow falls in two directions at once, it is mom shedding shoes before she even reaches the shoreline, and it's dad dipping into the pantry for gulps from the bottle like 15-minute chimes of a grandfather clock. Like he senses the chain link fence around the pie-shaped cul-de-sac lot with no apricot trees or pear. When the city's river flows still beneath its 3-inch ice sheet toward Lake Erie like a dutiful child, it is mom waking every morning of her life with a fish smell in her nostrils. And it is Eve's trough water gurgling through irrigation pipe drain that dad buried below the strawberry patches that he left behind and the new owners tilled under. When my husband and I drag the kids to visit a new city and I GPS our minivan to a riverbank or lake or reservoir, it is my mother telling us, get on the boat, open the throttle, let wind rat your hair and whip your eyes to tears. It's my father asking, are you thirsty? It's how to float like an apple. Ooh, this has apples and water. I've never been able to float pretty like an inflatable doll, ungravitational atop a swimming pool's sky blue sheets. Like apples in a water-filled bucket, breaths held open, mouths bobbing for what teeth can claim. My body sinks, then reappears in parts at air level, just knees or hip or a squint-shut face, cheeks chipmunked with saved breath. Once a man I met said, I barely splash when I dive off the board. He meant petite. I heard inconsequential. Most water is colder than I want it. The way an apple skin might shine perfect, not Corvette red, rather gold blushed chrysanthemum, but a bite sinks too easily through mealy mush. No one can be blamed for feeling cheated of crisp resistance or sugar or juice. No one can be blamed for what's expected of them. It's been too long since my skin was wet by river. I want to disappear underwater. River, never bucket, never bubbly rosewater, clawfoot, tub water. I need some silt and to unfurl new gills, even if I disappoint by how my breath comes. Once a man I met said, compliments never hurt anybody, but I am that apple. And this is my last one. This is called Mercy. I forever await inevitable disappointment like an axe in an attic anticipating flood. The clock doesn't care who glances its face, who's late or impatient. It ticks its rhythm anyhow for its own pleasure. I try to remember mercy for past versions of myself, try to be like that clock, to presuppose my best of intentions, to remind myself not everyone expects serpents, expects to fail. Some folks hear in the metronome of those three slim arms, the earth and all its gardens greening just for their particular oxygenation. No agenda beyond now, now, now. We don't always mean to axe the apple tree branches that we're straddling. We fall back each autumn, spinning clock hands to the previous hour, the chance to reclaim 60 minutes of wrongness that seemed right at the time. Like crab apples, tasting so leafy, earth-like, you would swear Eve was born of its core, and not that notorious rib after all. And all she wanted with that damn bite was to know her mother. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Now I'm glad we know what all that Eve wanted. Next poet is Gerlandra Larkins, who is a multi-genre, can't talk tonight, is a multi-genre writer, three-time award-winning spoken word poet, and the author of Before I Lie. She is also a Compass teaching artist and art instructor at Now Make Art. She's performed for the NAACP, Button Poetry, Mill City Museum, the Minnesota State Capitol, the Minnesota Black Business Ball, and the Minnesota Black Authors Expo. She co-edited Cracked Walnut's anthology, Rewilding Hope, and the Nation's Underground Writing with Our Ancestors. She is a recipient of the Loft Literary Center's Teaching Artist Fellowship, the Minnesota State's Arts Board, Creative Individuals Grant, and the EPIC Grant. She has led writing workshops for the Loft, Nexus Community Partners, UROC, Henry County, and the St. Cloud School District, and more. She is creator of Pocket Poetry Dispenser at the Next Chapter Booksellers in St. Paul. She also serves as a grant reviewer and coordinates author programs for the Friends of the St. Paul Public Library. Go ahead, Jordan.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks so much for reading off that long bio. I appreciate it. And thank you so much to all the poets who shared before me. Y'all poured so much truth into the space. So I'm honored to add my voice to the circle tonight. And thank you, Valerie, too, for being here and for coordinating. Thank you. So happy equinox, as Zoe mentions. To start off, I'm going to read from my debut poetry book called Before I Lie. And in the spirit of the equinox, I'm going to perform Spell Work Inherited, How My Mother Taught Me to Write. I've been writing like my mama hemmed poems into my palms. Like every woman in my bloodline braided ink into my fingers. My bloodline been good with their hands, weaving, working, worrying, praying. I just let it sing on the page and I turn all that labor into language. My mama plants gardens in shadows where the light doesn't reach, taught me to plant forgiveness in small resistant pots, taught me how to water empathy, how to pour love, how to kiss the roots of things too stubborn to change. My mama taught me how to speak life into dry ground. She taught me stitching ain't just cloth work, to sew is soul work. Showed me how to thread grief into fabric, how to bind myself back together, how to knot what poverty and violence tried to unravel, how to tighten what the world tried to pull apart. My mama says, I'm the little girl who wrote on her wrist, who clenched her fist around a pen, used poetry like Jen to write away her sins, who gripped a ballpoint pen and squeezed her worries into verse because poetry was the only magic that ever casted her back first. I learned that poems are just garments for a soul too wild to wear ordinary cloth. We are spellcasters. Every poem a spoken mutiny, a rebellion, an alchemy of hope pressed into callous hands too tired to hold dreams, yet still we're casting spells. We turn suffering into superpowers, transmute wounds into wisdom, and pain into progression towards our purpose. We take the bruises, backhands, and broken wishes and spin them into bridges, into bonfires, into blood song. I learned early that being too loud meant being labeled dangerous, that the world won't always hand you a storybook ending, but I could carve folk tales out of misery, read fairy tales from fractures, become my own wizard with nothing but a pen and a crooked spine full of stubbornness. Poetry was never just art. Writing is vital. There's poetry and prayers, so poetry becomes survival. It's spell work is science. The way an artist visualizes a mural in their mind and manifests it into the physical, creating is spiritual. And my pen has always been a ritual. Every stanza is a psalm, every rhyme a resurrection, every metaphor is a map back to myself. I am the same little girl who once scribbled spells into drywall, begging for a new world. I am the woman who now spits spells into microphones, building new worlds out of nothing but breath and ashes of imagination, because poetry is how we conjure breath after the breaking. I mastered my magic because I stopped waiting for permission to believe. I don't just write for myself. I write like my grandmother's calluses live in my pen, like my mother's prayers bloom between my stanzas, like every broken thing they mended, I'm sewing too. But mine comes out in poems instead of hymns. And I've been writing like lineage lives in my hands, like every woman before me knew how to mend what the world tried to tear. I spin what they carry into something that speaks. This is my inheritance, the spell work in my skin. Every word, every line is a patchwork prayer. This is spell work. This next one is called Holy Note. And this is it's currently hanging up at the Halberg Center for the Arts art exhibit in Wyoming, Minnesota. So I'm going to share this one with y'all. Holy Note. Surely the one who made light and day, heaven and birds, made you. No mistakes, no scratch outs, no margin left empty. God didn't draft you, didn't sketch you in pencil. You were inked with purpose. Bless. And then the last one I'm going to share, I always end this poem on all my performances. It's called A Letter to Love Yourself. And it's an affirmation poem and a love letter to you and to myself. Love yourself. Do not believe society's standard of beauty, because truly you are a masterpiece created by the master God. You are beautiful. Just skin and bone human. You are not made of metaphors. But your strength is fire. It's never ending. It doesn't burn out. Let no one hold your power. You're the queen, king of your tower. Breathe. So you found the strength to keep going. Hold on just a little longer. What doesn't kill you makes you a conqueror. You got to be brave. David conquered your Goliath and slay. Just love yourself. And nah, I'm not talking about buying a new pair of shoes with your fresh taper cuts or your brows on fleek, edges sleek, so you shared a tweet and now you're feeling yourself. I'm talking about healing yourself from the root of your core. Because if you won't acknowledge who you truly are, then what is your purpose for? So this is a society that made you feel like you're Black is not a boastful believer. And this it's a society that made you feel unsatisfied with the skin you're in. Fall in love with your imperfections. Skin, smile, face, collarbones. You are a blessing, and don't second guess this, because I absolutely and definitely, wholeheartedly love me unconditionally. Do not believe society's standard of beauty, because truly you are a masterpiece. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Derlandra. Wonderful as always. I was surprised to see that you had a short poem in there. I'd like to finish with a poem by Louise Bogan called The Alchemist. I burned my life that I might find a passion wholly of the mind. Thought divorced from eye and bone, ecstasy come to breath alone. I broke my life to seek relief from the flawed light of love and grief. With mounting beat, the utter fire charred existence and desire. It died low, ceased its sudden thresh. I had found on mysterious flesh, not the mind's avid substance still, passionate beyond the will. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Thank you, our poets. Thank you, Valerie Lockhart and Minneapolis Television Network for putting us on. Have a wonderful equinox.
Thank you.